Chernobyl, the explosion that changed how we fear technology. In the early hours of the 26th of April 1986, a routine safety test at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in Soviet Ukraine spiraled into catastrophe. Reactor number 4 exploded, releasing a cloud of radioactive material into the atmosphere and altering the course of nuclear history forever. What began as a technical failure quickly became a human, political, and environmental disaster on a scale few had imagined possible. The explosion was not caused by a single mistake, but by a deadly combination of flawed reactor design and human error. Operators disabled critical safety systems during the test, unaware, or unwilling to acknowledge, that the reactor's design made it dangerously unstable at low power. When the reactor surged uncontrollably, the resulting explosions tore the building apart, exposing the reactor core to open air. Firefighters arriving at the scene had no idea they were stepping into lethal radiation. In the immediate aftermath, Soviet authorities attempted to minimize the situation. The nearby city of Pripyat, home to nearly 50,000 people, was not evacuated until more than a day later. By then, residents had already been exposed to high levels of radiation. Many were told they would return within days. Most never did. Pripyat became a ghost city almost overnight, frozen in time by contamination and abandonment. The human cost of Chernobyl remains difficult to calculate. Acute radiation sickness killed plant workers and emergency responders within weeks, while long-term health effects, particularly increased rates of thyroid cancer, continue to be studied decades later. Beyond physical illness, the psychological impact was profound. Fear, stigma, and displacement affected millions across Ukraine, Belarus, and beyond. Chernobyl was not just an explosion, it was a trauma that spread silently. Politically, the disaster exposed deep flaws in the Soviet system. Secrecy, rigid hierarchy, and fear of punishment delayed critical responses and cost lives. Some historians argue that Chernobyl accelerated the collapse of the Soviet Union by undermining public trust and forcing greater transparency under Mikhail Gorbachev's policy of glasnost. In this sense, radiation did more than contaminate land, it destabilized an empire. Environmentally, the consequences were both devastating and unexpected. Large areas were declared exclusion zones, unsafe for human habitation. Yet over time, wildlife returned in surprising numbers. Wolves, deer, and birds reclaimed the abandoned landscapes, raising complex questions about humanity's role in ecological destruction. Chernobyl became an accidental experiment. What happens when humans suddenly disappear? Culturally, Chernobyl has become a powerful symbol. Books, documentaries, video games, and television series have transformed the disaster into modern myth, often blending fact with dramatic interpretation. These retellings reflect contemporary anxieties about technology, authority, and invisible threats. Chernobyl reminds us that progress without accountability carries enormous risk. Today, the damaged reactor lies beneath a massive steel structure designed to contain radiation for generations. But the legacy of Chernobyl cannot be sealed away. It lives on in environmental policy, nuclear safety standards, and collective memory. Chernobyl was not simply a Soviet tragedy or a nuclear accident. It was a warning. A reminder that when human ambition outpaces responsibility, the consequences can last far longer than any explosion.